people behind the scenes is letting it be known that JuJu Watkins has landed a major damn payday from Nike.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing, JuJu Watkins just landed a Nike deal that's supposedly worth way more than Caitlin Clark's, and trust me, fans are losing it. Nike just made a decision that has everyone scratching their heads and honestly fuming online. Think about it. Caitlin Clark, who's not only in her second pro year, but still the biggest name in women's basketball, just got pushed aside while JuJu Watkins snags a monster $30 million contract. The backlash is absolutely insane, and the questions everyone's asking are even louder. Did Nike just make a colossal mistake? Let's dive in.
When it comes to Rich Paul, he's a juggernaut. And he's going to make sure his players get special whistles. He's going to make sure they get the most money. And he's definitely going to make sure they remain popping, bro. So me personally, I believe, from what I'm hearing, that JuJu Watkins has landed upwards of $30+ million from.
All right, let's really set the stage here because you need to understand the magnitude of this. For years, Caitlin Clark has been the ultimate headline machine for women's basketball, literally lighting up Iowa and breaking every record in sight. She was the one who turned college arenas into NBA-style sellouts, pulled in TV ratings that actually embarrassed some NBA regular season games, and single-handedly made the WNBA appointment viewing for people who hadn't even thought about the league in years. So, after all that, what does Nike do? They basically turn around and say, "Thanks, Caitlin, but here's JuJu."
I was listening to Rich Paul say it was the biggest shoe deal since Zion. That's crazy. Have you done anything? Have you splashed out with any of the money?
No. I try to be very smart, but yeah, just super grateful for the opportunity.
And that here's JuJu part. Yeah, it's for a massive Nike shoe deal. Now let's be crystal clear, this isn't a knock on JuJu Watkins at all, because honestly, JuJu is a phenomenal young talent. She's got all the skills, she's flashy, she's incredibly exciting to watch, and crucially, she's with Clutch Sports, which let's face it, is basically a cheat code in today's sports marketing landscape. You know, Rich Paul and LeBron James, they are not letting their clients play small ball when it comes to brand deals, trust me.
Does your shoe deal prove that women's sport is every bit as popular as men's sport these days?
I don't know. I don't think that's really up to me to answer. But like I said, just super grateful for everything, and the women's game is definitely headed in the right direction.
But here's the real issue and why fans are absolutely furious. It's less about JuJu's huge payday and much more about Nike's seemingly complete disregard for the player who literally revitalized women's basketball interest worldwide. Think back, Caitlin Clark signed with Nike super early, way back when she was still lighting up the college courts at Iowa. Everyone, and I mean everyone, expected that deal to explode into something absolutely historic once she hit the pros. And sure, the $28 million number that was initially thrown around sounded massive at the time. People were saying, wow, this is the biggest shoe deal in women's basketball history. But get this, here we are, just 2 short years later, and Nike is already pushing her aside like she's yesterday's news, all in favor of a player who hasn't even finished building her college legacy yet.
JuJu Watkins just signed a multi-year contract extension with Nike that'll give her one of the richest shoe endorsement deals in women's basketball. Nike officials finished discussions today on the deal with negotiations led by Clutch Sports CEO Rich Paul and Watkins' team. JuJu originally signed with Nike.
And honestly, it's not even just about the numbers anymore. Yeah, Caitlin's $28 million sounded great on paper, but here's the absolutely crazy problem. Where are her signature shoes? Seriously, where are they? Where are the massive flashy ads plastered all over TV and social media? Where is the big hyped up rollout that should be screaming face of Nike women's basketball from the rooftops? Instead, what did fans get? Absolutely nothing. Crickets. Her shoes still haven't been released. The marketing push is practically invisible. It honestly feels like Nike just signed Caitlin to lock her down so no other brand could get her, then just left her sitting on the bench.
School senior back in October 2022, and now coming off a season after becoming the all-time leading scorer among freshmen in NCAA Division I basketball history, she continues to make history by securing one of the richest endorsement deals for a female athlete.
Meanwhile, JuJu's deal leaks, and get this, Rich Paul is suddenly calling it the biggest since Zion Williamson. Seriously, think about that for a second. Zion Williamson scored $75 million with Jordan Brand before he even stepped foot on an NBA court, and now Nike is putting JuJu Watkins in that conversation, while Caitlin Clark, the actual ratings magnet, the undeniable attendance booster, the real face of the women's game, is still left waiting for her own shoe to drop. And I mean literally. Fans are absolutely not buying this. Social media has been an absolute mess since the news broke, with everyone asking the obvious, how in the world can Nike overlook Caitlin Clark? She's the one player who actually moves the needle for the WNBA. Ticket sales follow her everywhere. Ratings spike whenever she's on the court, and merch flies off the shelves with her name attached. That's not opinion, people. That's cold, hard data. And Nike, a company built on chasing cultural impact, is acting like they don't even see it. Now let's talk about the Clutch Sports angle, because it's a huge piece of this puzzle. JuJu signing with Rich Paul's empire? That's not just a deal, it's a shortcut to corporate America's biggest bags. Clutch Sports doesn't just negotiate, they manufacture stardom. They'll get JuJu on magazine covers, major podcasts, and red carpets before she even makes her WNBA debut. And look, that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just business. But it leaves Caitlin Clark fans legitimately asking, why didn't she have that same machine behind her? Caitlin went with a more traditional agency, and you can clearly see the difference. Nike probably felt way less pressure to give her the Zion-level treatment because her reps weren't banging down their door the way Clutch does. Rich Paul doesn't take wait and see for an answer. If he wants $30 million, he's getting $30 million. Meanwhile, Caitlin's side might have been too trusting, just assuming her on-court stardom would naturally translate to off-court support. Well, now we clearly see how that turned out, and the timing of this couldn't be worse for the WNBA either, because the league is already neck-deep in non-stop drama. Everything from Angel Reese's antics to Natasha Cloud's off-court blow-ups, and let's not forget the constant fan backlash over protecting Caitlin Clark on the court. And now Nike comes along and basically pours gasoline on the whole fire, telling fans, yeah, we see all the buzz Caitlin brings, but JuJu's the one we're really betting on. If their goal was to make WNBA fans feel like their opinions don't matter, mission accomplished. Let's rewind for a second. When Caitlin Clark made her WNBA debut, Nike had the absolute golden opportunity to own that moment. She dropped 20 points in her first game, even with 10 turnovers. The arena was packed, millions tuned in, and ESPN couldn't stop talking about her. That should have been the moment Nike dropped her signature shoe. That's how you seize momentum. Instead, what did they do? Nothing. They completely wasted it. And it gets even worse when you compare Caitlin's treatment to male NBA stars. Remember LeBron James as a rookie? Nike had the Chosen One campaign rolling before he even played an NBA minute. His first signature shoe dropped immediately. He was the face of the brand from day one. Zion Williamson, his deal was locked up and splashed everywhere before he even laced up in the NBA, but year 2 and still no shoes, just a contract with numbers that suddenly look incredibly unimpressive next to JuJu's. And here's where the sarcasm really kicks in. Nike clearly thinks Caitlin Clark's value is what? Meh. Compared to a college player who hasn't even carried a league yet. That's like Apple deciding the iPhone was overrated after the first one sold out worldwide and instead throwing all their energy into promoting the next iPod. Makes total sense, right? Wrong. Fans are absolutely livid because they see this for exactly what it is, politics. JuJu Watkins has the clutch machine, and Caitlin Clark has Nike dragging its feet. And the WNBA, for its part, cannot afford to mess around here. They don't have 50 stars that move the needle, they have one player whose name alone sells tickets and pushes TV deal, and Nike just told that player, you're not our priority. Here's another angle that fans keep pointing out. Caitlin Clark isn't just an athlete, she's a cultural figure. Moms in middle America wear her jerseys. Little kids show up with homemade signs. She's the kind of player who brings in casual fans, the ones who normally wouldn't even think about watching women's basketball. That's priceless, but apparently not priceless enough for Nike to roll out her shoes before moving on to the next project. And the fallout. Fans are already openly talking about whether Caitlin should just leave Nike. Think about that year 2 in the pros. And fans are begging her to ditch the biggest sports brand on the planet because they're not treating her like the star she is. Under Armour, Adidas, Puma, any one of them would kill to have Caitlin Clark as their centerpiece. Nike had her first, and somehow they're fumbling it away. Now here's where things get even more interesting, because if Nike thought they could slide this past fans without a massive reaction, they must have completely forgotten that people actually watch the games, not just the highlight reel. Fans immediately pointed out the obvious. Caitlin Clark is absolutely carrying the WNBA on her back, driving ratings, ticket sales, merchandise, and even sponsorship interest. And yet, Nike turned around and said, nah, we'll go with someone else. That's not just a bad decision, that's a direct slap in the face to the people who actually buy Nike's products. The funniest part is how quickly people online connected the dots. They weren't even subtle about it. Everyone said the same thing. This has Clutch Sports written all over it. JuJu is with LeBron's camp, and Nike and LeBron go together like peanut butter and jelly. So of course the pick makes sense in a boardroom. But out in the real world, it looks absolutely ridiculous, because the average fan doesn't care who represents who. They just know that Caitlin Clark should have been the obvious face for this. And here's the kicker, Nike isn't exactly sitting on top of the world right now. Their stock has been shaky, their sales have been declining, and they're getting hammered by competitors who are moving faster and connecting better with younger audiences. So what do? They make a decision that directly alienates the exact audience that's been keeping the WNBA relevant this year. Caitlin Clark's fans are loyal, they're loud, and they're spending money. You'd think a company like Nike would see dollar signs. Instead, they saw politics. This isn't the first time we've seen Nike play games like this, either. Remember back when they pushed certain athletes not because they were the best at the moment, but because they fit the image Nike wanted to sell. It's a pattern. They love picking who they think should be the star, not necessarily the person who earned it. And 9 times out of 10, the fans see right through it. This situation with Caitlin just makes the whole thing even more obvious, because it's happening while she's literally dominating headlines. Meanwhile, JuJu Watkins is no scrub. Let's be clear, she's incredibly talented, and she could have a long, successful career. But let's be real, she's still unproven at the pro level. She hasn't faced the intense pressure Caitlin has. She hasn't been tested by the physicality, the hostile road crowds, the constant media attention, or the jealousy from opponents. Caitlin has lived through all of that in just her rookie year, and still kept her game at an incredibly high level. Nike passing over someone who's already proven she can deliver, just to hype up a rookie who hasn't played a single WNBA game yet, shows you exactly where their priorities are. And here's where it really backfires, because instead of making people excited for JuJu, this actually puts immense pressure on her. Now she's got to live up to the fact that she was chosen over Caitlin Clark. Every stumble, every off night, every bit of bad press is going to be magnified because people will constantly be comparing her to Caitlin. That's not fair to JuJu, but Nike completely created that situation. By playing politics, they set her up to be judged against someone who's already established as the undisputed face of women's basketball. But let's not pretend Caitlin is losing here. If anything, this actually makes her an even bigger draw. Her fans are going to rally even harder, saying, fine, if Nike won't back her, we will. And don't think for a second that other brands aren't watching this. Adidas, Under Armour, Puma, they're all licking their chops right now, because Nike just opened the door for one of them to swoop in and make Caitlin the centerpiece of their women's basketball push. Imagine the headlines if Adidas snags Caitlin Clark after Nike fumbled this badly. That's a marketing dream come true, and the WNBA itself doesn't come out looking good either, because let's be honest, this league has a history of being petty. We saw it with the All-Star voting, where players shockingly voted Caitlin 9th among guards. 9th. It was pure jealousy. And now, when Nike skips over her for this commercial, it just adds even more fuel to the narrative that the establishment is actively trying to hold her back. Whether it's fair or not, that's exactly how fans see it. And once fans believe the system is stacked against their favorite player, they don't just complain, they mobilize. It also raises the crucial question, what exactly does the WNBA want? Do they genuinely want to grow the game? Because if that's the goal, then promoting Caitlin Clark should be at the absolute top of every single priority list. She's the one breaking records, filling arenas, and dragging TV numbers out of the gutter. And yet, at every single turn, it feels like the league and its partners are actively trying to downplay her. If that's their strategy, it's one of the dumbest business decisions we've ever witnessed in sports. Think about it. This isn't like the NBA, where stars pop up left and right. The WNBA has struggled for decades to gain mainstream attention. Finally, they've got someone who undeniably moves the needle in Caitlin Clark, and instead of embracing it, they're playing politics. It's almost as if they'd rather prove a point than cash in, and in a league that desperately needs money, that's just insane. So let's fast forward what happens if Caitlin keeps climbing, keeps getting better, and keeps pulling in fans by the million. At some point, Nike is absolutely going to regret this move. They'll scramble to get her into a campaign, and by then, it might be too late. Because if Adidas or Puma already has her locked up, Nike will be stuck explaining why they let the biggest star in the sport slip through their finger. That's how bad business decisions are made, by thinking short-term politics instead of long-term growth. At the end of the day, this entire situation really comes down to one word: jealousy. Players jealous of Caitlin, agents jealous of the attention she gets, brands jealous that someone outside their direct control became a superstar. And jealousy, it always leads to bad decisions. That's exactly what we saw here. Nike could have had a slam dunk, and instead, they tripped over their own shoelaces. So here we are, Nike picked JuJu Watkins, the WNBA looks incredibly petty, and Caitlin Clark somehow comes out even stronger. Funny how that works, right? The very league and brand that should be building her up are actually making her more popular by trying to push her down. And if you don't see the delicious irony in that, you're just not paying attention.